Can somebody bounce the email I sent to Eunice?
I will.
I think it's bad form to leave the city council member in the waiting room. Good evening, everyone. Paul Junker with Interwest Consulting Group. We are sitting at a couple minutes past 5:30, but folks are still seem to be coming on, and we're hoping we're going to see some more participants. So we'll ask you if you can just hold on for a few minutes, and we'll start no later than 5:35. Christine, are participants able to turn their cameras on if they wish to?
They should be able to.
Okay,
Yeah.
just wanted to confirm that that function was enabled.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Judith did a few minutes ago.
Yes, you did. All right, it's that magic hour of 5:35. We're 5 minutes into our time, and I think respecting everybody's willingness to join us, we need to get our discussion going. So thank you to everyone who was able to join us. My name is Paul Junker. I'm with Interwest Consulting Group, and just want to quickly introduce the folks who we have available to assist us. Nick Pergakis is one of our lead planners and assisting with the general plan update, as is Eunice M. The three of us are very much involved in the general plan update. This evening, we also have Eric Norris, Liz Golden, and Jennifer Williams. They were available to help us with breakout rooms because we had no idea how many people would be participating. And candidly, our participation looks quite low at this point. So I think probably Liz and Jennifer, if you'd like to drop off at this point or hang around for a little while, but I suspect we won't need to have all the breakout rooms we were prepared to have. So this evening, we're going to be going over the general plan update, providing an introduction to what the process is. There's a couple of functions that I want to mention to the group that you can use as we're having this discussion. One is, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see reactions, and you have the ability to raise your hand. There's a little icon that says reactions. And now I'm going to lower my hand. So if at any point you need to get our attention and have something you just really want to get answered at that point, please do raise your hand. The other function is there's a chat button. And so we would ask that as we go through our presentation, if you have any questions, just go ahead and click on the chat button, and you can type questions in there, and then we'll be watching those questions and responding to those questions after we get through our presentation. So those are just a couple of functions we wanted you aware of that are available in Zoom. We're going to go through a presentation on what is a general plan and what steps are going to be taken. And after that, we'll take about 10 minutes. If there's any questions, we'll go over those at that time. And then following that, we're going to go into breakout rooms where we'll ask some specific questions of group members. So I do want to mention at this point, and I think the folks who this affects are aware of it, but we are asking that city council members, planning commissioners, and general plan working group members not comment. And I just got a message that eliminates everybody but one person. We have a bit of an issue here in that, Patrick, you're going to have to do a lot of talking because we're going to be looking for a lot of input from you this evening. We're going to go ahead and run through the presentation, and we'll see where we go as far as the breakout sessions and what we're going to do. But with such low participation this evening, we may need to rethink how this evening is going to go. With that, Nick, would you like to go ahead and start the presentation?
Yes, I will do that. Just one moment here. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, thanks. So why don't we go ahead and go to the, I'm sorry, Nick, were we going to run through some polling questions? Did I jump past that?
You know, now I don't think it's going to be applicable, Paul.
Okay, yeah. So we had some questions that we would have run through with the full group, but since we're asking a number of you not to participate, it really wouldn't be beneficial. So next slide. We are going to move much quicker than we had hoped this evening, I'm afraid. But we have already gone through the welcome and introductions, and because of the limitations on the ability for elected and appointed officials to comment, we've already bypassed doing the poll questions. And so at this point, I'm going to ask Nick to discuss an overview of the general plan update. I think you can go ahead and advance a couple of slides, Nick.
Okay. So yes, the general plan defines the vision for what our city and the city of Rio Vista will look like in 25 and how to get there. The general plan establishes long-term goals and policies to guide a community in realizing a vision at least 20 years in the future. The state of California requires each city to adopt a comprehensive long-term general plan for the physical development of a community and provides a list of topics that must be addressed. Rio Vista's general plan was last comprehensively updated in 2001. And since then, the city updated the housing element in 2014 as required by state law, and other elements of the general plan have been modified through minor amendments. This effort provides a timely opportunity for the city to review the general plan as a whole, reassess its effectiveness, and provide a framework for decision makers to establish goals and policies that will guide Rio Vista in realizing its future vision. Here we're showing the general plan elements that we're going to be addressing in the plan, and these will have land use and community character being addressed, mobility and circulation. For housing, we actually have another consultant working on that process, which is simultaneous with the general plan update, although they are on a much quicker time frame. So they have already started developing the housing element draft, which will be ready for sharing to the community in a few months. And so you may have seen some public notices regarding meetings. Perhaps some of you have attended those meetings. But that is a separate process, although that housing element will be folded within the general plan in the end. And we also will be addressing other topics in the general plan, such as parks, open space and conservation, how to increase economic development opportunities, also looking at noise and safety, as well as public facilities and services. I'll turn it over to you, Paul.
Thank you, Nick. The process of preparing an update to the general plan goes through a number of steps. The first, which we've already started, is we're looking at all the documents that have been prepared for the city. There's been some great planning work that has either been completed or actually is underway right now, and all of that will fold together. The general plan becomes that single central document that guides the city, and so we want to build on all the good work through documents like the waterfront specific plan, or currently there's an active transportation plan that's being prepared with Solano Transportation Authority. All of that's going to fold into the general plan. We are going to go through the existing plan and really mine out the best parts of it. We want to preserve and carry forward the best components of the existing general plan, but we think there's probably some opportunities to make the general plan easier to use, more clear in its direction, and so we'll be enhancing and refining it. We are going to be looking at the conditions that affect Rio Vista today. The last general plan was 20 years ago, and climate change was barely an understood concept 20 years ago. Now it's clearly known as a threat to the community. I'm not sure exactly what traffic was like 20 years ago, but we know it's a big issue now. So that's really understanding the existing conditions that helps us identify what we're going to focus on in the general plan update. Tonight, we're starting the community workshops, and we are going to have to be considering how we can get better participation from the community. It's critical to know what the community wants for Rio Vista, where they would like to see the community go. And so that will work to get that input through community workshops this evenings, again on Saturdays, and then we'll have another pair of workshops that will be conducted at locations within the community. Then we'll be swinging in, and really we're going to be starting with the general plan document preparation at this time. We're starting to establish a framework and format for the document, as well as think about what elements are really applicable for Rio Vista. Throughout this process, we're going to have to coordinate with outside agencies, and that will be going on kind of behind the scenes, but very important that we work with certainly the county, and as well as there are certain state regulatory agencies we want to work with throughout the process. The California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, is a big part of any document. It's there will be a general plan environmental impact report. Sometimes you hear the acronym EIR. The firm Placeworks is teaming with us. They're preparing the EIR, and that will be getting underway soon once we start framing up the document. And then after all of this is done, we go through public hearings with the Planning Commission and City Council for the plan adoption. Nick, next slide. We've heard from the city council, clearly, the public participation is very important. This is a once in 2 decades chance for the community to weigh in and say, this is our vision. Has it changed since the last update? Maybe a little, maybe a lot. We're very interested in today's residents weighing in and understanding where Rio Vista sees itself going. There's much of the vision for the community probably remains the same. It's a wonderful small town community. It's in a beautiful setting on the river, and those are really important attributes of the community. But what else? What type of jobs will best fit Rio Vista for the next 20 years? What type of housing? How much commercial do we need? There's a lot of questions that we may well get different answers now than we got 20 years ago. And so the public outreach is very important for that. We have a general plan working group that's involving members of the city council, the planning commission, and the community at large. And that group is, I think we've had 3 meetings so far, 3 or 4 meetings with the general plan working group. And so they've been very active. And we have developed tools to get input from the community. One is a program site referred to as MindMixer. And this is a tool that's really good at getting input from the community through surveys, as well as the community members can share images, they can identify key locations, a lot of functions there. But we also have just established the general plan website, which will give you the web addresses to both of these at the end of the show. So those are the ways right now that we're trying to get input from the community, and we'll see what is going to be best going forward. Next slide. Okay, here's the timeline. We right now we're in that step 1 area and step 2, and there is a lot of overlap in these steps. They're not discrete. It's not that you do 1 before you do number 2. But right now we're in the background analysis, pulling together information on the community, adopted plans, and really getting a sense of what we're working with as what's adopted today. We have been listening. We had a great meeting with the general plan working group where we had some open discussions about the future of Rio Vista, much the same questions we would pose to the community this evening. We will be swinging into number 3 relatively soon. We're going to start framing up the elements of the general plan. And as we learn more about the priorities and preferences and vision of the community, that will help us refine those elements, as well as we start getting some of the technical studies done that are going to inform the general plan. We anticipate having a draft general plan somewhere around the end of this year into early 2023. And that will be the first time you see a complete draft general plan and get to understand what the document will look like. And then the hearings for the general plan will be spring of summer next year. So we could anticipate hearings in the planning commission, maybe April, May at the earliest, and city council, June, July, possibly, but those are fluid dates, and we'll move as quickly as we can while still respecting the community's need to have participation and be comfortable with the plan. Next slide, Nick. So at this point, we're not sure if we yet have any questions. I think maybe Nick, were you watching for any questions in the chat?
Yes, I haven't seen any so far. If somebody does have a question, since we do have such a small group, Paul, do you want to allow people to raise their hand?
Yes. So Christine, can you unmute Melissa?
Oh,
Melissa?
hi. Hey, I did send a question into the chat. So at the beginning, you said that there was questions you were going to ask, but because of the group was mostly everybody that was on committee or the council, you're not going to ask those questions. I'm not on either of those, so I was curious what those questions were. And I mean,
And why don't we take down the presentation and let's go ahead and run through those questions.
Okay, yeah, we have more people now, so let's go and do that.
Yeah, that would be great. So this is a function of Zoom that you can run these polls. So as the questions come up, if you could just go ahead and click the appropriate responses, that would be fabulous.
let us know when they're supposed to display, because I'm not seeing anything.
Yeah, they're not up yet.
Okay, all right, just. I was just checking, thank you.
I know, we're all, there it is, okay. So you'll see these questions and you can log your responses and then scroll down. And anyone who's not in one of those categories of city council, planning commissioner, or working group, please do take these questions now. We'd really appreciate it. Okay. All right. So we have a couple of people who have responded. Again, if you're not council member, planning commissioner, or on the working group, we'd really appreciate a response.
I think a few people are on their phones calls, so maybe they're not able to do that, perhaps.
The poll does not present on phones as well?
Well, I believe it does, but they may not have the ability to do that. I'm not sure.
Okay, so Nick, can you run through these questions and explain to the group what we were generally after?
Sure. So the first question, just wanted to get you warmed up, just thinking about Rio Vista and these questions that get you thinking about tonight. Some of the questions we're going to be asking you later in the meeting. So it looks like the beach one, in terms of number one, that's the most popular spot to go to on vacation. So question number two, how long have you lived in Rio Vista? Looks like we have one person attending that has lived in the city for 3 to 5 years. And then we have two people that have lived in the city over 20 years, which is great to have tonight, to have your opinion, your ideas. In terms of where you live, we see that we have one person from the historic core, and we have two people from the Trilogy neighborhood. For question 4, what do you like best about Rio Vista? We had about 5 options, and it looks like one person liked the geographic location, the thing they like best about Rio Vista, and then 2 people had answered proximity to the river and recreational activity. And then for the last question, how would you like to participate in future public workshops? We asked if you'd like to attend virtually, in person, or no preference. And we have 2 people that said virtually and 1 person that said no preference.
Thank you, Nick. I think we can go ahead and end the poll.
Okay.
So we've already run through those results. Thank you, Nick, for summarizing that. One of the most significant ones is we appreciate that 2 of the members would prefer these meetings be virtual. I think given the low participation in a virtual setting outside of the folks that really are invested in the general plan already, the general plan working group and planning commission, city council members, we're probably going to be focusing on in-person meetings going forward. We'll see if there is interest in the Saturday meeting. If we see enough interest, we're happy to conduct meetings in a virtual format. But the key is we really want to reach residents, and whatever we need to do to get to the residents, that's what we want to do. So I suspect that going forward, we'll be having in-person meetings, and hopefully we can draw more folks. We'll offer cookies and coffee or something. I don't know what we'll make it worth your while if you come out and talk to us. Okay, so Nick, I think at this point, we are about ready, and unless we have, I don't see any other questions in the chat. Is anybody seeing questions in the chat?
I actually have two people raising their hands, Paul.
Yeah, could you, Christine, could you unmute Ricky? Ricky, you have a question?
I think it would be good the next time you guys post your meeting, especially on Nextdoor, in addition to all the information that you print, provide a link so someone can click on that instead of typing in all the information. That's going to help quite a bit.
Great comment, thank you. We want to make this as easy as possible. Melissa?
Yeah, so I wasn't sure if like that was the meeting and I was here, excuse me. I was here during I remember discussion of updating the general plan, but I don't remember how it was done or what kind of outreach they had. So I just want to give a couple of comments as far as the outreach. I went to the website. I'm technically inclined, so it wasn't difficult for me, but I feel it would be difficult for people that are not familiar with how websites work. So I'll just give my comments however they are. It required me to log in, which I felt that was a little restrictive for people that wanted to take a survey and get people's input. And then, so I think that was just my comment. And then also, I'm not really sure how well this was even advertised. I know city manager, the office of city manager will post, but you can't make comments, which is fine. And then I actually made another post to remind people that I'm just not sure how much outreach is actually reaching people, whether it's on Nextdoor or in the Beacon. If it's in the Beacon, maybe I would recommend having it, bolded so people see it. And then I'm not really sure people, because I'm not even clear on what our input is going to do as far as the general plan. So those are just my comments. I'm just here to really understand, how the process is going to go forward. I know the city council uses the general plan, but it's not really directly referred to unless somebody questions something and then they say, oh, it's in the general plan. So anyway, I'm just here to learn. Thank you.
Well, you've opened the door, so now you put some things out there. First of all, Melissa, let me share my screen for a moment. This is the general plan website, and this is not what you got to. You got to MindMixer, I believe, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
And I
this
did
is-
actually find this, I think.
Okay, this is we just brought this online. So this is the general plan website, which will have information about meetings, and it will have all of the results of, so we will have a videotape of this community meeting posted up. And so there'll be a lot of information available here on the website, and there's no need to log in for this. The MindMixer
Okay.
site is a little different tool, and we did actually hear that some folks found it a bit challenging, and so that was part of the reason that we did go ahead and bring this website online as well. But thank you for the comments on that. As far as how did we reach out, we did have actually a front page article in the Beacon about the general plan. So that was one way that we did try to reach out and let the community know. I've got to commend Art Darden because I think he single-handedly posted flyers in 20 or so businesses and put a lot of flyers out throughout the community. And I know other people did as well, but maybe Art was kind of performing above and beyond. So I wanted to acknowledge and thank him for that. And then we did do the social media outreach through the city's Facebook, the police Facebook, the fire Facebook, I think the Chamber of Commerce. And so we attempted to go out through the social media. And I guess my observation would be somehow that didn't resonate with the community. So we do have to think about how we can better encourage and get people excited about the general plan update. And then finally, you said, well, how does this thing even get used, the general plan? It gets used in a few ways that really affect the community. One is we make decisions about what land uses go where. Will a shopping center go here or will houses go there? And those are what we call land use decisions. Whenever a developer comes to town, they need to look at the general plan. So the decision made in this process will determine where uses go and what type of uses and how big and intense they are. So those are some pretty important decisions that are made in the general plan process. It's also, the document also helps us figure out where to direct city resources. Of course, no city has as much money as they wish to spend on programs to enhance the community. The general plan will help us identify the things most important to the community, and those resources the city does have available to invest can be spent in the smartest possible way. If we're going to put a bike lane in, where's the best place to put that bike lane? Are we going to create some incentives to get more businesses downtown? Would fiber optics be the thing that allows people to come to Rio Vista and work virtually in the next 20 years? How about some kind of transportation improvements to address the Highway 12 traffic? All of those issues live within the purview of the general plan. Those are the kind of things that we're going to be taking on and talking about. And then eventually both city decisions about land uses and city decisions about how the resources are spent in the community will be guided by the general plan. So pretty important stuff. It's rather complicated, we get it. The five of us from Interwest love this stuff, and well, we're planning walks, but we recognize that this is not something that inherently excites community members, but it is really important to the community. So hopefully that provides some understanding of what we're doing and what this general plan will mean to the community.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I do understand why it's important, but I just don't think a lot of people understand that this is their opportunity to, give their input and possibly consider changes to how the general plan gets applied. So I hope more people are able to get more information about that and give their input.
Yeah.
When the changes go through, do you approve? Does the whole new plan get approved, or do sections of it if certain sections stay the same? Or do you just approve a new general?
This is a comprehensive general plan update. Every element in the general plan will be updated. So nothing is going to be carried over from the current general plan in its current form. Now, if there's good ideas and good policies that are in the current general plan, they may well be brought forward into this next iteration. So it's not like we're throwing the whole plan out, but we're also not leaving anything completely alone.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure. Any other questions? And for folks, I know we've had a couple of folks who have jumped on a little bit later. We've run through a brief presentation about what a general plan is. And at this point, our desire is to go through some facilitated discussions. Nick, is it possible that, given that I think we're still sitting at around 5 or 6 people that are not constrained. Christine, could you confirm that? How many people do we have that are not planning commission, city council, or working group?
It looks like 7, but I'm not sure who the phone numbers are, so.
Okay,
7 with the
so,
phone numbers.
okay. So Nick, I wonder if we couldn't run through our facilitated discussion as a group instead of going into breakout room. Can we pull that off?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. We should just do it as one big group, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so with that said, Nick, I'm going to ask you to lead us through the facilitated discussion. And Liz, we can release you for the evening. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll just show a few slides going over the activity for tonight. And we do say you're going to join a breakout room, but we're not going to be doing that this evening. We're just going to talk as one entire group, as Paula just mentioned. And this is an opportunity for us to listen to you and to hear your insights and your thoughts about Rio Vista today and where you think it should be in the future in the next 20 years. So we'll just go ahead and go to the next slide. We're not going to be having to report back from each of the groups. Okay, so here we have listed 4 questions that we're going to be asking you over the next half hour on the current state of Rio Vista today and what could create a better city in the future. So we'll go ahead and get started. So what are the best things about Rio Vista today? And what you enjoy and what you think is great about the community?
Okay, so we are really interested in hearing every idea, any idea. So who's going to step out and be our first commenter? We're going to call on people. We'll put you on the spot. Melissa.
I'll just go. I just think that Rio Vista, the best thing about Rio Vista is the people that live here. There's a lot of things that I might not participate in directly, but I think in general, all the people that live here enjoy living here, and we're all, you know, I guess some people would say it's small enough that, you know, everybody can get along. And I mean, I think that's the people that live here are the best thing about Rio Vista, myself.
That's great. Patrick?
I really enjoyed the small size of Rio Vista and how compact. I enjoy that it's compact and rural. I like being able to, you know, walk from one end of town to the other. That's definitely one of my favorite parts of it.
Can everybody see my screen? I'm just writing down everybody's comments so you can visually see them as we go along.
Okay.
Looks like Ricky has a comment.
Ricky?
It's commitment, the people's commitment to being a progressive city.
What does progressive mean to you, Ricky?
We are mindful of things that are happening outside of Rio Vista. And we are taking the right steps to make sure that we meet the challenges of our world. Like things that we're working on, like Black Lives Matter. We went to a point where we could say all lives matter, not Black lives don't matter anymore.
Cool. What else? What else is great about Rio Vista? Ricky, did you still have something, or is your hand just?
Oh,
still
I'm
up?
sorry. I didn't know that you wanted me to speak on something else.
No, I just see your hand still up. I wasn't sure if
okay.
you had something more.
I could say more, but I'm going to lower my hand.
Yeah, so we'll do the questions one by one. So we'll go to the next question and we'll get your thoughts on the next ones as well. So if we have any more thoughts on the best things about Rio Vista today. Love to hear your thoughts. Hey, Melissa? Go ahead.
We have the best sunsets in the Bay Area.
Love it. I'll tell you, as someone who lives in Folsom, I like your climate.
All right. Well, if we don't have any more
I
comments,
think, Ricky?
City government is open and inclusive. They're actually, you can actually reach our governing board as opposed to other places where, they're a little more out of touch.
Great. Did I see Fred came on? Fred, just to let you know where we're at, we're going through a series of questions and asking the groups their thoughts on Rio Vista. So there's a function at the bottom of your screen that's called reactions. If you click on that, you'll see that you can raise your hand. So if you have any responses on any of these questions, or anybody else does, please raise your hand and we'll call on you and ask you to share your thoughts about these questions that we're going through. So the current question, we're about to wrap up if we don't hear anything more, is what are the best things about Rio Vista today? Nick, are you picking anything up from chats as well? No. Ricky, anything else, or?
It's nice to have a municipal airport in your backyard.
Hmm.
So it's nice to have our own airport.
Oh, I'd just like to say also, where I feel like we're pretty close to nature out here. I've always really enjoyed that. There's like a lot of like riparian areas, like areas that have been left alone and left to lie fallow, and I enjoy that.
So close to nature.
okay.
All right. Anything else?
So Paul, I was muted a minute ago. Yes, somebody had wrote in the chat about proximity to the river. That's why that was added.
Perfect. Thanks for keeping an eye on it. So we can take the comments in the chat as well if you're more comfortable with that. We would just really appreciate the input. And I don't see everybody's names, but I assume that anybody who raises their hand will see them. Is that correct? Okay. Nick, I think maybe we head on to the next question.
All right, let's do it. So our second question is to ask, what could be better about the city in the future? And it could be just about anything you're thinking of in terms of aesthetics or uses in the city or activities, anything you think that could make the city a better place to live in the future or work in the city in the future. Okay, Ricky, go ahead.
Diverse leadership in government.
Okay, Melissa, you're next. Raise your hand next.
You know, these are difficult questions because I think if you lived here any period of time, you understand that there's, you know, a lot of components to things that we would like to see better. So I'm gonna list what I think are what the two. One is a traffic pattern that is beneficial to the local residents, so somehow to improve local traffic. And then I'm sure another one that is hot on a lot of people's minds is the storefronts appearance in our downtown area. You know, we don't have to like rebuild everything, but and I think the city may have been trying to work on this over the years, but how to just improve the storefront appearances. And I think many people would look at Sassoon and see how their downtown core city has improved over time, you know, so that's mine. Thank you.
Could you talk a little bit more, Melissa, about the traffic pattern that serves residents? What are you thinking there?
Well, you know, we all know Highway 12 is going to be a bottleneck, and with a 2-lane bridge, it's always going to be a bottleneck. So, you know, some people, so with the addition of I live in Trilogy. We've got Liberty Island Liberty that's growing. We've got Brand Island coming. If Sestino ever comes, then it just seems to me that, you know, maybe, and again, I don't know how that's addressed. If do you create some kind of local circulation pattern that allow, you know, so for example, people, they use their phones and they're like, oh, Highway 12. So they'll take Liberty Island Airport Road down to circumvent the traffic. You know, is there anything that can happen to enable the locals here to move between here and downtown easier? You know, people that live in what's called core, they don't often have to come out this way unless, you know, for whatever. It just seems like maybe there's a way to improve that. Again, I don't know. I'm just saying that would be critical to people. Well, for me, during the week, you pretty much have a difficult time getting down to Lyra's or the pharmacy when the traffic gets backed up. And I'm aware of the improvements that are coming to Highway 12 in the next year. And when they start to do the work on Highway 12, it's going to even cause because other people take the same routes that we do. So
Got it.
anyway,
You know, that helped. Thank you.
thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Okay, Patrick, you're next.
I would really like to see, and I know in the original city plan, the one from 2001, there's some talk about open space corridors, like these, like protect these kind of like areas that should be like left alone and left to kind of just develop on their own. I would really like to see the city maintain the existing corridors that haven't been disturbed, and I'd really like to see them, if possible, like, strengthen and expand the area that's kind of covered by that area, just so you preserve natural space that's in the community. I'd also like to say that I'd really like to see Rio Vista build inward over like the location that's like the old city dump out on like Airport Road. I think right now the city it's kind of built in like a diagonal shape. And I think that it would really benefit from Rio Vista by staying compact and not necessarily building out in another diagonal pattern, but using some of the empty space that we do have within city limits. And my last comment would just be that I think that the city should prepare its infrastructure for like really large rain events. I know that we're really moving to a period in time where we're having singular large storms instead of a bunch of individual smaller storms. And I think that we really, especially with the beach, the wastewater treatment plant at the beach, that we really need to take into account that, you know, we're going to have these singular large events and maybe just building for those events instead of, you know, maintaining the existing smaller storm kind of model. Oh, I'm sorry, one last thing. I'd like to see a safer crossing over Highway 12. I was a kid who lived in this town and grew up, and I absolutely ran across the highway. I understand that there is, we do have a designated crossing, but I think that an elevated crossing would be much safer, and more people would use it. That's pretty much everything.
Was that a bike ped crossing or for cars as well?
For pedestrians, preferably.
Okay.
And where is that again? At which, at the bridge?
Yes, at the corner of the bridge where you there's, you go underneath the bridge to get onto it. The area, it's like a tire auto body shop right now by the McDonald's. That
Okay.
area is where if you're a person from downtown, that's where you cross.
Got it. Okay. Okay, Ricky.
I think another good thing would be to take full advantage of the infrastructure grants and awards that are available to cities that are over 100 years old, like ours.
Okay. All right, Stephanie? Can we unmute Stephanie?
Sorry.
One sec. There you go.
Unmute- Okay, got it, I think. Yeah, I'm unmuted. I thought it might be a minor tourist attraction or point of interest if we could have something explaining the wind farm, what a wind farm is, what it contributes to society, why we have it here, that's sort of like the Railroad Museum, only modern. And anyway, that was my suggestion.
So these could be like markers, perhaps in the park area on the waterfront that explain the wind farms and having that information around the city.
I was actually thinking like a really small, probably start small, but like the Railroad Museum.
Or like a museum, like a physical space for that.
Yeah, like a physical space where you could go and, San Francisco, they have the trolley car museum, and, if you like to know how stuff works, you can go and learn the history and how it works.
Interesting idea. Okay. Anything else? Something more, Stephanie? Yeah. Christine? Could you unmute Stephanie?
Trying to, okay, there it went again. Okay.
We have to
I
do
know,
it for you.
You have to I know. An entertainment venue?
So how about some color on that? What are you thinking?
My personal fantasy would be someplace nice. It doesn't have to be real Tony or upscale. Someplace people felt comfortable. Good, simple food, serve drinks, different kind of music or different kinds every night, live music. Maybe somebody existing like Lucy's could do it with some kind of push. I don't know, where the space would be. But I have friends who are musicians, and, they go down to these little cafes and they basically play for tips. And I know there are a lot of musicians around here because I've just been here a little while and I've come across enough to know that they're out there. there are people like me who would go, I think, you know, we go to karaoke, but we would go hear actual musicians too.
Yeah.
The karaoke is great, by the way. I want to give a plug out for the karaoke at the Monarch on Monday nights. And there's a whole tour of people who like to do that. You know, they go out to the Lighthouse, they go out to Wimpy's, they go all around. There's a crowd that likes that kind of stuff. And I think people who would like more of that without having to drive on 12 or 13 or go over the bridge, you know, they would like to have it closer to home.
Mhm.
So any other things that could be better about Rio Vista?
If I do it that way. And I know I'm new, so maybe it's all here and I'm not seeing it, but something more transparent. What I really would like would be like a local newspaper that covered more than press releases that are submitted, sometimes not even edited, full of typos and stuff, but like more of a real newspaper. I get most of my news from Nextdoor, and that's very helpful, but even an online newspaper, something a little bit more like the Beacon is the newspaper of record for legal things, right? I mean, it has a certain role in the community. I'd like to see where that would cover actual news, like something happened in city council last night. I just don't see that.
Alyssa? You can
Um,
unmute.
I would like to add, kind of in a different area, is a general overall, and maybe this is appropriate for the general plan, a general over standard for landscaping throughout of easements and, you know, along streets and things like that. There doesn't seem to be, and again, you know, Highway 12 is a lot of the city. So, you know, maybe that's the responsibility of Caltrans, but it just seems that there needs to be, you know, that actually, you know, when you drive through the city and you see the landscaping and you see that, you know, all we have is weeds, or nothing, or just not really maintained. It just, and even down Airport Road, it just seems that landscaping could be an area that we could improve in. You know, yeah, thanks.
Got it.
We have Ricky again.
I'm just curious. I mean, I've got a lot of different ideas and a lot of things I don't want to say or propose right now. And I want to give other people an opportunity to share. But I'm wondering if you want to hear more of the things that people may want to suggest, but they're kind of holding back on that. You might want to
Well,
make sure.
we have a couple options for anybody who is not as comfortable with putting ideas out. One would be you could just type things into the chat, and we'll save the chat for after the meeting.
Okay.
Another would be we're going to point everybody to the website, and we'll accept comments from the website. So if anybody who gets home tonight and says, gosh, I wish I had said something, you can send that along as a comment on the website and just say, I had this idea about something I'd really like to see in Rio Vista, something I'd like to see better in Rio Vista. We'll take it in any form. We really want the input and we want to make it easy and comfortable for you. So the chat right now, the website, verbal comments, all of those are available to you.
And
Okay,
on
thank you.
Say again?
my side as well, we can have you put in ideas in that as well. put that in, and other people can see your ideas as well. They won't just be directed to us alone. It'll be something that other people can view, and they can provide a thumbs up. They really like your idea. Then we can see how many people support some of the ideas that you have.
Yeah, well, we'll show you a little bit about the Mind Mixer, but it is kind of a combination of Nextdoor and Facebook rolled into one, but dedicated to the general plan itself. Okay. Melissa, something more?
Oh, I just have a question. So this is kind of just getting the high level ideas, right? And then as you move forward and continue to have your meetings, you're going to be covering very specific things of the general plan. And that's where we would come back and maybe have more input about the specifics, or is that right?
That is exactly right, Melissa. So what we're trying to do now is get a sense of what's on the minds of people in Rio Vista. We're not trying to solve exactly where a crossing would go, but we're interested that getting people walking and biking safely is important. So we're really at a visioning stage in the general plan where we're thinking about where are we going to spend our effort? Where do we really want to dig in and think about ways we could enhance the community? And how could the general plan help guide those efforts? So right now, we're still very much in the visioning stage, not trying to figure out where the live music venue would go, just really interested to hear that having a live music venue or even live entertainment in the community would be something the community would value. So that's really the level we're at.
Thank you. And I'm listening to this, and I've been involved. I attend city council meetings, a lot, and there's not a lot of involvement or turnout. So I'm just wondering, do you as a company bring to the city ideas of how to maybe not get more community involvement, but to at least have them be aware and knowledgeable? Because I think sometimes what happens is people aren't aware of how the city government works and all these pieces that are critical to our living. Do you bring to the city, Rio Vista, how to maybe we can improve that? Because I think that, in my mind, tends to be what missing is people don't understand that there's so much that goes on that they don't have to be aware of, but they need to know that it's happening. Does that make sense? Thanks.
Yeah, it doesn't. Just to respond to that, Melissa, we, of course, none of our team lives in Rio Vista, so this is a learning curve for us. This is our first attempt to reach out to the community. We're definitely going to have to think about alternative ways to reach the community, how we're going to talk to and learn from the community. We will be bringing ideas in, but certainly I think you folks have ideas as well. There's folks on the working group, on the planning commission, city council, who have been deeply involved in civic activities, and they'll be helping us understand how to make this work for Rio Vista. Frank, if you could unmute Frank, I think he has a comment.
Yes, I wanted to sort of expand on what Stephanie was saying earlier. The other thing that is really an important thing to the city of Rio Vista is the river. And I just don't see much acknowledgement that that is important. So like she was saying about having the wind farms be featured in something, maybe it's a museum. I think of the Exploratorium in San Francisco, or the Museum of Science and Innovation in San Jose. So things that really pick up something that's unique about Rio Vista. I don't know of any town of this size or even larger that has the river so adjacent and such a part of this city, and yet we don't really acknowledge it much. So I'd like to see that expanded.
I kind of was waiting for those comments myself, Frank, because it is such a wonderful part of Rio Vista in so many ways. So, and we have heard that from other folks as well. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
What else? Nick, I'm wondering if some of these things might, what would you like in Rio Vista that's not here today? I wonder if the Wind Farm Museum doesn't belong in that lower category.
Right, right. I'll change that out and then I'll
Okay,
add the,
great.
other type of museum, it'd be nice to have one on the wood farms or perhaps one, describing the ecosystem of Rio Vista perhaps and the river.
Okay. So we are still open on what could be better in the city in the future, but unless we see any more comments, we're going to move to the next question. All right, Nick, why don't you explain what we're after here? Next question.
So what we're trying to get with this question, what would you like to see in Rio Vista that's not there in the city today is, you're really looking at 20 years ahead, and there's a lot of things that you may see in other cities, like in other downtown areas you visit, or in other cities that you like to explore or go travel to. So what would you like to have in your community that's not there currently, but would like to see in the future?
Stephanie, if we can unmute Stephanie.
I would like to see a way as a retiree. I live out at Liberty, and I'd like to see more ways to connect with the people in town who have kids. Like what are the? I mean, I don't actually see a list of what do you do? Go to the high school football games, or what do you do? That small town that connects us with them. I like a real coffee shop where you could sit down, and not drive through. There's a whole list of things. It's like a wish list, but I want to circle back to something that somebody said, the traffic flow. Really, honestly, the best thing about one of the best things here is being able to do certain things quickly, except when you almost can't do them at all because the traffic hangs you up so bad, and you don't expect that in a really small town. So traffic flow as the area grows is huge. Also, since you've unmuted me now, I'd like to add a better water quality.
So I'm just going to note here about better roadways, perhaps to help with traffic, and help with better mobility, let's say.
Yeah.
And then, I'm sorry, what was the next one you said?
Water quality.
Okay, improve water quality.
Yeah.
Looks like Patrick has something. Christine?
Going off of water quality, I would like to see Rio Vista prepare for something like recycled water. I think some of the homes here are plumbed for, for something like that. But I would mostly like it if we could find some way to make that if we get something like that in the future, perhaps it's a little bit easier to dig the trenches for that and just prepare for that. And something kind of similar, fiber optics. I think some parts of Homecoming actually do have fiber optic, but I don't think they're actually used. If we could maybe prepare for something like that too, where we maybe don't necessarily have the fiber optics, but we have conduits that, we could prepare for some expansion in the future. I think maybe that's something we should prepare for.
Okay. Definitely be helpful in the future.
Yeah, Stephanie.
Thanks. Does this process include planning for sea level rise and, like increased fire? I mean, is this this would be what the general plan would be, being prepared, right? As the climate crisis worsens?
There is an element in the general plan referred to as the safety element. And, outside of just being good practice, we're required by law to think about climate resiliency. And that's different for every community. If you're in the western slopes of the Sierras, it's fire. If you're on the coast, it's sea level. Well, Rio Vista has vulnerabilities because of the Sacramento River and rising water levels in the Delta, as well as I think maybe Patrick mentioned the severity of storms is increasing. So we're seeing bigger and bigger storms on a regular basis. And what's that going to mean? So all of those will be considered in the safety element, as well as any key infrastructure we have that could be impacted by any of these climate-driven changes. Wow, lots of hands. Cool. Fred, Frank. Hold on a second. Let's get Frank unmuted. Just a second, sir.
I just wanted to clarify that when we talk about improved water quality, we're talking about the tap water, the municipal water supply.
That's how I took it. Yeah.
Yeah, I just would like to be sure that that's clear.
As compared to like surface runoff, I guess.
Exactly, or the river water.
Yeah. Yes, sir. So that's domestic
municipal water quality. That's you captured it now. Yes, thank you.
All right, moving down the list, Ricky.
City Hall, it is not in the best place because of the water, because of flood potential. And we should have that space available for nice waterfront type amenities. I think City Hall should move over to where the police department is right now, over in the business park.
Great comment. Melissa.
Oh God, I forgot. When they were talking about the police department, the city hall, there was a plan that City Hall was going to go. There was going to be a community infrastructure placed at Airport Road and Church Road. And then that's kind of been modified or changed, I think. But I think I agree, that's something that should be reconsidered. But I think a concern when you talk about what's happening in the future and water quality, the city, from my understanding, has development agreements with several developers that were created in 1996. And due to however they get extended, they're still in place in general. But I think people are starting to be concerned, is the infrastructure as a whole been reconsidered? Because now we're 20 years later, 30 years later, and do we have the water supply? Do we have the infrastructure to maintain these additional developments? And I think what my point is that the city should reconsider or reevaluate these developments and make sure we have police, fire, and infrastructure in place before we move forward with additional developments.
Yeah, Nick, why don't you throw that in the next category, because that's, biggest issues. So,
I just like to say, I would also like to see, more green space. We do have a lot of parks in Rio Vista, but we don't necessarily utilize, I think, all of the open space that we could. I think that some of those areas, could possibly be developed into not necessarily parks, but just greener areas. And speaking about moving City Hall, I think that there's a large space that's taken up by Caltrans and PG&E currently. And I know that's not necessarily under the city plan to necessarily move them, but perhaps preparing for them to be moved, perhaps looking for space where we could potentially relocate them to in the future. They take up a huge chunk of real estate on Highway 12. And just perhaps that is something that we could, you know, if there was space to move them, perhaps that's something that could come up in the city. In addition, if we're talking about wish list stuff, I kind of mentioned this with the recycled water, but a new wastewater treatment plant for lower Rio Vista would be fantastic.
Patrick, could you elaborate a little bit when you say green space? What does that mean to you? Is that places where people can walk? What is a green space to you? It's not a park, I think, right?
No, more, we have some benches downtown that's like on Main Street that's really nice, and perhaps just, you know, a place that is cooler. Like I think about like Sandy Beach has like a huge area that's just trees and grass, and it's like 15 degrees cooler than everything else. And I think there are people in Rio Vista who don't have access to air conditioning, and perhaps that is, you know, that can take some of the burden off of our aging power grid.
Okay, and the Caltrans thing, could you explain what location you were talking about? I wasn't quite clear on that.
Oh, on Highway 12, between Ace Hardware and the McDonald's, there's a large area of yard that's set aside for PG&E and for Caltrans. It's like their maintenance yard. They keep a lot of their equipment there. I mean, I think we definitely benefit by keeping that in town. But I've heard people mention that that's some real estate that could potentially be developed commercially. That's, you know, it's in downtown, or, you know, it's in central Rio Vista, and perhaps that could be that, you know, if we had a place to move PG&E and Caltrans, perhaps that's a discussion that we could have in the city, because I think that's the main issue right now, is there's no place to move them.
Okay. Stephanie, you're up then.
So let me just say this, and you can help me get it a little more succinct. There's a lot of chat on Nextdoor recently about there's a construction project down on River Road. It's the first property closest to the river off of, so you turn off of River Road, and before you go under the underpass and the bridge, you know, so just west of the bridge, I guess. Anyway, it's a big space, and it's being built, and it's being built for boat storage. And there was a lot of discussion by, I think, I'll just say, seemed to be a lot of retirees at Trilogy. That was the thread I was on, saying that would have been perfect waterfront property for a restaurant, you know, with the view of the river, like the Point kind of thing. The Point is a restaurant here that's on the river. Yeah. Okay. So something more like that at this end of town, and we would want to go there. And the comment was, well, that was a planning. It was zoned years ago, and it was part of the plan. But to me, it was like a whole town gown kind of like for people who boat. They want that boat storage near the river. The river is one of the main reasons or what features of the town. So that's not ugly to them, you know. But when you're thinking about a general plan, it's all those different constituencies and how they get those needs met. I would have liked to see the riverfront restaurant and like the city maybe take responsibility for somehow access to the river that didn't take away that opportunity, you know, that could have been something nice that would bring people into town on the weekend, or, you know, sorry, I'm rambling, but you, right.
So let me help you kind of unpack it a little bit.
Thank you.
I think, and this way predates me and maybe predates everybody on this call, but at some point, quite a while back, the industrial uses on the river were what drove Rio Vista. It was a, you know, that was the commerce, that's what the community was about. And somewhere in those days long ago, the decision to have industrial uses made a lot of sense.
Mhm.
And those industrial designations have remained, and the self-storage, the boat storage, and then more recently, the self-storage that will front to St. Francis, those are allowed uses in the industrial zones. So that's what you were hearing is, you know, these are allowed uses. This is one of the big issues the community, the general plan working group, the planning commission and city council will have to take on is, you know, we've heard this comment is, was that the best use of those properties? Well, the decision is made, those projects are moving forward. But should we have more? Should we have more industrial oriented uses in that location? Particularly if we can identify other locations in Rio Vista where those uses could be every bit as successful, but not necessarily on the limited waterfront. So that's a big question that we know we're going to have to wrestle with. So.
Thank you. Yeah, I realize, of course, you would not be unaware of such a big issue.
Oh yeah, heard that one a few times.
You heard that once or twice, been to a rodeo or two.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's an obvious one. And it was one that caught my eye when I first started helping the city with land uses. Wow, this is some prime real estate. So we'll be looking at that. Looks like Melissa has another comment.
Yeah, I'm not so sure it falls into this category, but it kind of goes along with what Stephanie was talking about. And it's, you know, considering the impact of, you know, what the city would see as business opportunities on the local residents. And the examples would be, you know, cannabis businesses next to Homecoming, or, you know, businesses that might, and this is all related to zoning. And I know you work closely with our zoning codes. So it's considering, you know, do we modify some of our zoning codes to enhance the usability of the property, but still protect the homeowners, the residents, because, you know, the people that live here are the people that you know, drive Rio Vista. And I just think that maybe sometimes, you know, maybe decisions are based more on a financial or a business oriented and not using, you know, seeing the direct impact on the residents. So yeah, I think that's just, you know, so I don't know if it's in this category or another one, but I think that, you know, how does the zoning codes impact directly or indirectly impact, you know, home residents? And is that beneficial, or is it, you know, because what I see in the last year is, well, it's in the zoning code, and this kind of goes along with what Stephanie's saying, is that, well, it was already zoned for those uses and they approved it. You know, today, was it the best use? Maybe not. But it's how do these decisions impact the residents that really, you know, desire to live here? So.
Okay, Nick, I think you got part of it, but maybe do another one that's just something like maintain a balance between economic uses and community, something like that. It's, you know, what is that balance place? Because honestly, we can't really ignore either, because the commercial uses, the economics, the jobs, those allow the city to take care of business for the community, but we can't forget about the community members in our desire to have a financially sound community. So, all right, I think Stephanie, your hand's still up.
Oh, yeah. Well, to just sort of take that further about the community, you know, as a recent addition to the community, and I talked to enough of my neighbors out here in Liberty and people in Trilogy, you know, we're part of a wave of people moving out from all over the country, but especially out of the, what you call the core Bay Area, out, further out. And I worry about the impact of the housing prices that we're paying on the existing community. And I gather there's not much of a homelessness problem here yet, but the way urban growth and these kinds of pressures happen, it looks to me, just being a newbie, like this is the moment where the city could address some of that in their plan. Like, what is our plan for different economic levels of housing before, we have a group of people sleeping on the street?
Okay, so maybe add another one, Nick, about just range of housing to meet community needs, something like that.
Yeah, that would cover it.
Okay, I will tell you, somehow 5:30 doesn't seem that long ago, but here we are coming up on 7 o'clock, and that's the time that we all committed. We at Interwest are happy to stay as long as anybody wants, but I think we have to respect the community as well and your time. So I think we want to get to maybe the last few comments. If anybody has something you'd really like to get out, but keep in mind also that we're going to show you the website, and we're going to make sure you know how to give us more comments, and anything you think of tonight, tomorrow morning that comes to mind, we really want to hear it. So any last ideas anybody wants to get up? Looks like we have a couple of participants with hands raised. At least that's what the note says.
Yeah, I'm unmuted, so I just didn't know if we need to put it on the list as police and fire. I know that there was always a plan that there would be police or fire or some kind of public service substation out north of Core, maybe on Liberty Island, maybe at airport. So I don't know if that's in the plan or if it needs to be added to the plan, but I think it's important to document it somewhere that was always in the plan, that there would be another substation, and, granted, that's all funding and things like that, but I think it should be part of the plan. Thank you.
Great. Patrick?
Going off of biggest issues that need to be addressed, I really feel like traffic, both motor and pedestrian, could be improved in Rio Vista. I think those are going to be two big issues, especially motor traffic moving forward. I also think that Rio Vista, as far as I know, does not have, we don't have like a public emergency evacuation plan. I'm not sure if that's something that's covered under the general plan, but perhaps something like that, preparing for, a wildfire or something like that in the future.
Okay. Both great comments, and actually both are covered under the general plan. We are in the process of addressing the countywide emergency response plan, and that will be folded into the general plan as well. So I think at this point, Nick, we're going to have to call it on the comments, and if we could close out the whiteboard and bring up the presentation again.
All righty. Hey, Eunice. Are you still on? I think you are.
Yes.
Hey, this saves automatically, right?
Yes, correct.
Thank you. One moment.
And Nick, I think we can just skip to slide 15 with the website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to talk about key takeaways. We've all been part of this discussion. So,
Sorry about that.
yeah, one more slide. Okay, these are the two web locations that we would really like you to be aware of. www.riovista2045.com is the web page. And so you can go there and get information about the process. You can get information about upcoming meetings. You can see recordings if you happen to miss a meeting. We will be posting up the draft elements. So that's the place that's going to be the repository of all of the information that we're collecting, all the draft products, the work products that we produce. The second address takes you to the MindMixer tool. And this site is really good for, particularly there's a survey that we would love to have people go and take. If you can go to this MindMixer site, and I think that Eunice has just copied the web address in the chat. So if you're willing to, we would really appreciate if you would go to this Rio Vista 2045.mindmixer site and take the survey. So we're really trying to get people to weigh in and individually give us their thoughts. So that would be much appreciated. There's a lot of other functions in the MindMixer site. There's different ways to log comments, or you can like comments. There's going to be a body of information that we'll collect out of MindMixer that's really going to help us decide where we put our effort. And that's what a lot of tonight has been about, is what areas are really important to Rio Vista? What are the problems that you would like to solve? What are the best aspects of Rio Vista that you want to make sure are preserved? So both the MindMixer site will allow you to give us that type of input. And then if you have any additional comments, you can log those in through riovista2045.com. So let's see. I think if you can go to the next slide.
Oh, do that.
And that's me. And I would be happy to get any messages directly. Nick Pergakis, who's been talking us through this, his email is the same format, npergakis@interwestgrp.com. Anytime you want to reach out to one of us, and you can put those in the chat as well, Eunice. Happy to have a dialogue offline, happy to take your comments and questions. So at this point, I see, Frank, you do have your hand up. What's on your mind, Frank? Just a second.
I just wanted to say that I can't copy this for more information. I can't just highlight it and copy it. But if you put it in the chat, then I can highlight it and copy it.
Yeah, we're putting those into the chat right now.
Good, thank you.
Yeah. So you should, Eunice, do you have both of our emails in there now? Okay, so you have our emails, you have our website, you have the MindMixer site. We really do want to hear from the community, absolutely committed to that. And it's really, this is your community. This is about your future as a community, and we want to help you realize the best possible future for Rio Vista. So at this point, I think we're ready to wrap it up. Why don't you take down the show, Nick?
Okay.
Thank you to everyone who's come this evening. We really appreciate your time. We really appreciate the members of the City Council, Planning Commission, and Working Group that quietly sat and listened and probably were dying to jump in and share all of their ideas. I know that they're absolutely committed to the community and to this process. Just wanted to say thank you also to my team here at Interwest for being with us this evening. We're going to do this again on Saturday. 10:30, I believe, is the time. So please, if you can get the word out to anybody, we'd love to have more members of the community at 10:30 on Saturday, same virtual format. And then we will be having another couple of community meetings on towards probably June or so. We haven't really set a time, but those will be in-person meetings. They'll be in the community. So we look forward to meeting some of you face to face and talking about Rio Vista. And with that, I think we're going to call it an evening and say thank you. Nick, you look like you have something else to share.
Yes. Actually, the meeting on Saturday is at 10 a.m.
10 a.m. Thank you.
11:30. And one other note, it was mentioned earlier, people had difficulty finding a link to the meetings. It's actually on the website. You can go to the community meeting #1 and you can pick the date for this Saturday and you can get the link there. You don't need to type out that 400 letter Zoom address. Sorry that, there was a little bit of misunderstanding, but that is on the website and it is on the MyMixer site where you can just go and click on it. You don't need to type that up.
Yeah, and so a shout out to Councilmember Dole. He secured for us RioVista2045.com. Really, really easy. RioVista2045.com will take you to the general plan website. If you search in your browser, you'll get right to it. So please do go and look at the website. Leave comments, leave questions, anything. We'll be watching that. Anything else, Nick?
No, I think that's it. Really
All
great.
right.
Thank you.
Yeah, we went about 7 minutes over, but thank you to everyone who was able to chime in, share your ideas. We really do appreciate the input. And with that, we're